Welcome, everybody. I'm Karen Hoskin, the Executive Director for the Cohousing Association of the U.S., and Karen Gimnig is here as well. She is the Assistant Director, Communication Director. She does all the stuff that I can't do, which is awesome, and most of the stuff that I can do, which is also awesome. We're so happy to have you guys. I just want to make sure that you've all had a chance to see our shiny new website. If you have not, please do, cohousing.org. Same website address, but new and improved. All the same fantastic information it used to have, plus some more, and just organized a little bit differently so that hopefully you can find things a little bit better. So the plan for tonight, there's going to be Diana, the speaker, is going to present some information, and then there will hopefully be some time for questions and answers. And so without much further ado, I'd like to introduce her, Miss Diana Leafe Christian, wave hi, author, consultant, speaker of co-housing and all other intentional community-related subjects with over, 25 years of experience. Lives in Earth Haven Eco Village in North Carolina. Tonight she's going to be speaking about dealing effectively with especially challenging community behaviors. And this is her earlier web chat, which there was some technical difficulties, but it was such incredible information. We're going to just make sure that that information is shared. So that is tonight. Diana, whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you. Normally I introduce people to each other and we all introduce ourselves, but with only 1 hour, I'm going to skip that and let us just see each other's lovely faces. There's going to be half an hour of me presenting information, and there's 2 hours of information, so I'm going to condense it quite a bit. And then the other half hour is for your questions and comments. When we get to your questions and comments, what I want to do is hear a lot of them in a whole row, and then answer them all at once, and then do that again for a half an hour, because we have an hour total. The reason I want to do that is because sometimes people ask the same question, and then we can save a little time that way, I think. I'm going to make a series of videos that have all the information that fits into actually 2 hours of presentation time. It'll probably be in 6 weeks that I have them finished, because I have a bunch of other projects right now. And so I'm going to make those videos available on a YouTube channel that you can watch, which I will find a way to get to you. The 3 ways I can think of that I can reach you is via Coho US, via Karen and Karen, by posting the links in the Coho L listserv, and by asking you, if you wish to email me and say, hey, put me on your list. If you'll tell me your name and your location, I can do that. My email is Diana, D-I-A-N-A, @ic.org. I also have handouts for tonight. One handout is the whole entire presentation that I'm doing. Another is descriptions of some folks I have known in communities, names changed, of course, who do some of these behaviors and how it affected, what they did, how it affected other people, and what happened at the end of all that. And also some videos that I recommend for learning more about this, educational videos, you might say. So that's what comes with this. However, tonight it's just us chickens, as they say. So I'm going to suggest 3 kinds of things. What a person can do their own self to feel more calm and peaceful and not get engaged or hooked into drama and trauma with someone else's issues that they might be trying to hook you like a fish on the hook, that you might get caught up in and think, oh shoot, why did that happen again? How to not let that happen? How to be peaceful no matter what they're saying or doing, how you can feel fine. So this is just about you. That does help the community by reducing conflict, because you and that person aren't going to have any with these methods. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the two things that groups of friends and colleagues and neighbors can do privately, not a whole official community thing, that they can do to help themselves feel better and become more empowered. And the third thing is what the whole community can do officially to make a few changes in their self-governance method, which is unlikely that many communities would want to do this, but I'm honor bound to share with you what can help. And so, and some communities that have done that. So all of this is going to be pretty fast, and I'm going to start off with what this is not about. It's not about having mediations between yourself and the person. It's not about creating a deep and bonded and connected, emotionally rich relationship with yourself and the person. It's not about, or persons, it's not about restorative circles or using empathetic communication and nonviolent communication, although I will talk a little bit about that later. It's not about the normal kinds of things that most community consultants suggest. The reason for that is that I've been trying to see what really does work and doesn't work in helping people deal with this kind of issues that come up in communities. And so what I found is that a lot of the things that work for 98% of healing community conflicts and creating more balance and harmony and goodwill among friends and neighbors, that works very, very well in communities, such as using restorative circles and mediations and talking stick circles and empathetic communication and nonviolent communication, of which I highly recommend all of that, but not in this case. So I'll show you my little graphic here. My little graphic, this is 98% of everybody in community, in my opinion, and these people are interested in having good relationships with other people in the community. And they're interested in understanding one another, and they're capable of feeling empathy and being moved by empathy and caring about you and each other and one another and caring about having a relationship. And some tiny percent of folks don't care about these things and aren't interested in them and don't respond to that. And that's what this web chat tonight is about. So, okay, where did I learn this? I learned this from living in community and thinking deeply and broadly and talking to a lot of people about what to do and what not to do to help make things better than they were. And from being a consultant to communities, starting out in the US and then ultimately internationally, learning from people in other communities what had happened and their stories and what they did and what seemed to work really well and what seemed not to work very well. So that's where I got this information. Okay, so then now I want to do is share with you rather briefly what I consider especially challenging behaviors. I'm going to list quite a few here. Behaviors and also what seem to be attitudes, which you can infer from behaviors. The people that I'm speaking of have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of these behaviors consistently throughout the years, but not all of them. Different people who have what I call especially challenging community behaviors don't have all these same behaviors. If you knew 2 or 3 people in any group or just in your life who do what I would call these behaviors, they would have different ones. Sometimes they'd have the same one and some other different ones. So this is really clusters, small clusters of the following behaviors, but not all of them. If they had all of them, it'd be pretty awful. And it can be awful in any case. So let's just get started. One of them is getting angry very quickly and even throwing what you might call tantrums, especially if they don't get their way or if someone else or several other people don't agree with them. Getting angry really quickly, maybe kind of frequently, and maybe over something more small than you think would deserve all that much anger. Criticizing, demeaning, belittling, or even bullying other people in the community with a kind of an energy or an attitude that seems like, from their point of view, they're entitled to treat people that way, but don't you treat anybody that way. But it's like, I'll do that with impunity, and why shouldn't I? Because I'm mad right now. Seeming to use people to get what they want, to be nice to somebody only when they want something from them, but otherwise to be kind of indifferent or cool or disdainful. Are you getting depressed? I hope not. The list is long and we'll be done with it soon. Seemingly hypersensitive to criticism, or hypersensitive to not being agreed with, to being, what's the word, like hyperreactive to it, to getting much more upset about not being agreed with than when you might say to somebody, oh, well, let's just agree to disagree. And the other person says, yeah, okay, I guess we see this thing differently. Oh, well, life on the planet. Instead, they're really pretty upset about it, especially if they feel or they believe they've been criticized, or if you actually have criticized them or asked them to change their behavior, or said something like, oh, please don't do that. When you do that, I feel this because of that, and would you be willing to talk about it right now? And they're really pretty upset with you. Okay, here's another one. Flatly denying the feedback that you give them about what happened last Tuesday that you felt bad about, and them saying, that never happened. Or, I didn't say that. No, that was you, not me, who said that. Whoa, that can be a little disorienting. Let's see. Seeming boastful or conceited or self-centered or controlling, monopolizing conversations. Remember the famous old joke? Well, enough about me. What did you think of my new record? It's like that, monopolizing conversations. The conversation is about themselves, but not much interest in yourself. Exaggerating their accomplishments, and even sometimes blatantly lying about what they've done or what they are, what they know, or something like that. So the next things I want to describe are attitudes and characteristics that you can infer by observing their behaviors. These people don't do all these things, or some of these things all the time. They do some of these things often enough that you notice it and that you might feel wary or weary or cautious or hesitant or kind of a little anxious around that person. But they don't do it all the time. But when you observe their behaviors, you can observe actual behaviors, right? You can see things that they do and say, but what you can't see is what their attitudes are. So you have to, the rest of this, what I'm going to say next, is sort of like what you could infer, what you could figure out must be so or seems to be so if the person does those other things. So here's some attitudes and characteristics. Seeming to be specially entitled, special treatment from others, obedience from others, to have rights that others don't have. They can break community agreements and expect that it's just fine, but if you try to break a community agreement, that's not okay. They seem to have little to no empathy. This is huge. There's been research and studies done by neurological researchers that show that in brainwave scans, some people who are known to have behaviors like this, the place in their brain which would have a whole lot of neurological connections and be what you might call fat and thick with neurological connections in the location of the brain where empathy happens, it's very thin. And that is extremely meaningful to me because it helps me understand with more compassion for these folks. They actually can't feel it. Not very much. It's not easy. It doesn't come naturally. Well, this is a really important thing to know for when we get to what to expect and not to expect. So when you're telling them something really important about your life, something wonderful that happened to you, they're not glad. They're a little maybe bored or annoyed. When you tell them something really painful and difficult that happened to you and you're trying to, just tell your friend about this, they're not too interested and they might be just a little bored or annoyed because they're not feeling empathy for you. It's not that they're trying to be mean, they just can't. They don't know what it feels like. It's like an alien thing. Can you speak Klingon? Probably not. Why? It's an alien language. That's what it's like, I think. They seem to want admiration from others. They seem to intensely envy others and assume that others envy them. They don't seem to be very self-aware or self-reflective. They don't go like this. oh, what did I do to make that happen? They just don't tend to do that, although you may be doing that. They seem to crave frequent admiration from others. Oh, I said that already, didn't I? Seeming grandiose. Some folks who do this seem kind of like, ta-da, here I am, hello, I've got something to tell you about my life. And it's a little, can wear you out. And they often are charismatic and sometimes brilliant and sometimes really funny and fun and the kind of person you just love to be friends with until after a while you wouldn't. Okay. Sometimes they seem superficial, interested in their looks, their money, their social status, and anybody else's looks and money and social status. They don't appear to feel emotional distress themselves very often, because if you're upset and there's a conflict between you, well, they're gonna think, gosh, you know, that'd be your issue. They're not disturbed, except for one kind of person, which I'll get to. Quite often they will form a small, very small group of allies, which sometimes in some communities get called by unkind names like minions or lieutenants. And the leader of this very small group of people who do these things form a kind of a coalition of support for the main persons, the most assertive persons' opinions and views, which is meaningful in community meetings when you're discussing something that different people have different views about. Okay, so now that's the list of behaviors. I'm taking a deep breath because I'm wearing myself out and making myself feel weird by just even saying these things. And I hope you feel okay too. Okay, so psychotherapists and psychologists and life coaches who specialize in helping people who have been negatively affected by someone who does clusters of these behaviors often call these narcissistic behaviors. So that's where I've been learning about all this, but here's the catch-22. I do not for a minute think that I'm qualified to know that anybody does or doesn't have narcissism, or that they are, there's that word, are, or are not a narcissist. I'm not qualified. I'm not a psychotherapist, and I'm imagining you aren't either, unless you are. And you may not specialize in this, but even if you do, that friend or neighbor in your community isn't your client probably. So I do not suggest that we think we know that somebody is, I hate to say the word is, a narcissist or has narcissism. Rather, I am extremely trained by nonviolent communication, and I'm extremely trained by living in community a lot. That means 18 years, and visiting a lot of communities and learning about it and studying it intensively. And what I know is any one person in a community can only observe another person's behaviors. And they can infer what the person might have as attitudes, but they can't really know something deeper that isn't really their business. So I'm suggesting that you look at behaviors. So let's say there's these behaviors on that list and you observe them. And they sort of match some things on the list, and they kind of match like that. This is a case of walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. And so what I'm thinking is the things that people say will be very helpful and useful when you're dealing with someone that a psychotherapist or a life coach will call a narcissist or having narcissism. If you do the same kinds of things that work well to keep you peaceful and to keep you from having to feel dreadfully drawn into conflict, it'll work the same way somehow with folks in your community where you don't really know if they do or don't have that, but you see these 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 behaviors that match up. So I'm going to say this again because this is so huge. I would like you to not think, hey, that Diana person is suggesting stuff you can do with people in the community that are narcissists. Please, that's not what I'm saying, because I don't think you, me, or anybody is qualified to say that. Rather, what can we do that works well? That's all I'm trying to address here. I hope that's nice and clear. The other thing I'd like to say right here is please don't let's say you observe some behaviors in a person and it kind of matches this list. And when I get your email address, or somehow we will get you this list as part of my handouts, which I have to wait 6 weeks to fix. But anyway, you might say, hey, look, check on this list. Please do not, under any circumstances, say out loud to any other human being. Now I'm going to use names from ancient Frankish and Gothic kings and queens, because it's unlikely anybody in our community will have a name like Amalacintha, for example. So so let's say you keep your cerrada la boca and do not say, hey, did you hear that that Diana thinks that Amalacintha's got narcissism? Boy, that's one way to have social death faster than you can say, hey, keep your mouth shut. Social death. You're familiar with that phrase? I made it up, but I'm sure you know what I mean. It's when people in your community are really pretty mad at you and they look away from you when you walk by. They don't want to sit by you in the shared meals. And why is that? Because you made a big, giant blunder. Please do not say out loud you're thinking this stuff. If you have a best friend you can share it with, or you're in a study group that you can learn about these things and share it with, and it's like in a circle of privacy and keeping it on the low down, please do. But otherwise, just observe, learn, and know what to expect and not expect. And if you want to apply these things, I'm going to share with you about what you can do. Okay. So the first thing to do is learn as much about this as you can. This is a case absolutely of knowledge is power. Information helps you understand what you're seeing and experiencing, and to not think it's you and that you're the problem because they say you are, and that you and I together are co-creating this difficulty. That's usually true. My friends, I think that's usually true, but not in the case of what I'm talking about tonight. It's really a good idea not to blame yourself, or not to keep going back and trying to have a connected and friendly and goodwill relationship, because that's what you want to have in community, and you want mutuality and reciprocity and goodwill, and they're interested in you and you're interested in them. You can really help yourself feel peaceful if you don't expect that. And how you can learn to not expect it is to learn as much about this as you can. So where did I learn about it? I learned about it sweeping the floor and doing dishes and listening to videos on YouTube by psychotherapists and life coaches who specialize in helping people who've been negatively affected by somebody in the workplace who does this, or their boss, or one of their, or both of their parents, or their love partner. And that's not the same thing as intentional community, but it's close enough for me to have learned a lot. So one of the sections of the video list I'm going to send you is the best videos I can find about these kind of behaviors in the workplace, because that's, or having a friend who does these things, because that's the closest I can come to what it's like in community. I have some stories that I'm not going to tell you tonight because there isn't time, but I'm going to in the video that I'm going to make, about people with the names of ancient Frankish and Gothic kings and queens whom I've known in my community who are no longer there, or in other communities who have done some of these things, and what it was like and the effect on other people, and then how it turned out. But I'm not going to do that right now. The people who can teach us about this describe two kinds of this set of behaviors, or clusters of behaviors. One is really obvious, and that's called grandiose narcissistic behaviors, are overt. It's obvious. You can see it. The person pretty much thinks they're better than you and better than other people, and they know that, and that, like, that's a given. And they might look upon other people with disdain or even contempt, and it's obvious. The other kind is sometimes called vulnerable, fragile, or covert narcissistic behaviors. And this is the one that I find the most difficult, and most people find the most difficult. This person doesn't do obvious well, I'm better than you and I'm here. Ms. Big is here now and I've got things to say. They're not like that. Underneath, they know they're better than you and they're very, very resentful that the world does not notice it or see it or acknowledge it. And they're more likely to do passive aggressive things or behaviors that when I used to not know how to describe this, I'd call that the what just happened behaviors. They say a thing and you go, and you just don't know what happened. Why do you feel bad? You can't put your finger on why you feel bad. So the people who do this in the what's called covert way, that's generally the response. So learn as much about it as you can. That's the first thing. That's the main thing. And the second main thing is that when you learn about it, what you're going to learn is what to expect and not to expect. So I'd like to do my little list here, and I hope you can read my handwriting. One is that they'll understand and get it about that they're behaving this way and doing these things. But they have little to no self-awareness, and they're not interested in it. So no, that's not going to happen. They're going to feel regret once they learn how they've treated you and how it has affected you or others. No. They'll wish to change and to grow and to evolve. No, they see themselves as superior now. Why would they want to do that? In fact, you need to grow and evolve, but not me. They will feel empathy and understanding for others. Well, they don't exactly know what empathy feels like. How can they extend it? They don't understand it. Or they'll have a relationship of mutuality and reciprocity with you and others. Please stop expecting that. Stopping expecting these things is 95% of what you can do to help yourself. They can change. Well, they don't want to change. Here's more. They'll get counseling or psychotherapy. Sometimes they do when it's court ordered because they're a criminal and they have to go get it because the court says so. Or sometimes when they're having a marriage problem and they've decided both to go get therapy, and then they'll get it, but they don't like it, they don't respond to it, they don't think it's a good thing, they know more than that dumb psychotherapist. You're speaking in an NVC way will resolve any conflict between you. I love NVC and I recommend it all the time. And I do it all the time too, except for when I forget. That's my joke. But the thing is, you could extend empathy like sending light into a black hole in the universe, and the black hole or this other person will absorb the empathy and love it. Thank you, yes, thank you for the empathy. But it won't come back, not because they're trying to be mean, it's because they can't. You're getting a community mediation will produce a change in their behavior in the future. No, it won't. Here's one that'll be interesting to all of us who are community consultants. An outside community consultant will make a difference. Well, yes, the current conflict can get resolved with enough hours and hours and hours and hours and some more hours of processing. But that conflict getting resolved won't have any effect on that person's habitual characteristic ways of being, saying things, and doing things. It's not going to make any difference. So why do I say all this? Because changing what you expect is one of the best ways to feel better faster. When I had a close friend, I thought, who turned on me and started treating me like I didn't exist, and then he started turning on my best friend who was one of his close friends, or lying to her and getting caught, and then turning on his girlfriend, the three of us decided to learn about narcissistic behaviors, and we did. We had a little secret study group, and it was a secret from the rest of the folks at Earth Haven because, my God, if we let anybody know we were thinking that in word, that in behaviors word, that's the word I mean here in this case, we would be vilified for, trying to psychotherapize somebody or to target them or to try to pretend that we could do a diagnosis of someone else. Heck no, we were secretly trying to find out what we thought might be going on so we could get so we could stop feeling awful. All three of us felt awful. We didn't know what to do. And each of us, in our own way, to various degrees, had just loved this guy because he was charismatic and fabulous and amazing. And he was like larger than life. And oh my God, I just loved being his friend until, whammo, he slammed the door in my face, as it were. And then he would knock on my door. And then I think, oh, hi. And he wanted something from me. And then he'd be nice for about 5 minutes, get the something from me and go around. And then he would ignore me again. And I kind of couldn't figure it out. I thought it was me. And maybe it was in addition. But what I did learn was once we got through the grief and loss of realizing the man that we had loved so much was never really like the man that we loved, but rather a figment of our imagination and our minds that he helped to create. And we realized that there wouldn't be mutuality, reciprocity, or empathy, or kindness, or goodwill towards us. When we finally learned that, it was painful and it took grieving, you know? It was like losing a friend. Well, it was. It was losing the friend that never existed, actually. You know, the friend we each thought he was. And then we all felt so much better. We felt relief. We felt relief because we stopped having unrealistic expectations. We had realistic ones. And he would do and say those things. We were each fine. The girlfriend, of course, slowly got the message that he wasn't a good boyfriend for her, and she ended the relationship in that form. And we were courteous to him, but we weren't having very much connection with him. Okay, so that's the learn everything you can. Please realize folks who do this probably cannot change. Let them be. Please don't try to make them be better or different than they are. I don't think they can change. I don't think it's even kind of us to try to push on them the vibes and pressure of you ought to get psychotherapy. You ought to learn. You ought to do different. You ought not to do that. When one does that, it's like there's no reward. It's fruitless. It's a waste of your time and theirs. It's not even kind to them spiritually, because just let them be the way they are. They can't help it, and they're not trying to be like that. It's just the way the psychological cookie she crumbles. When you learn all about this, like maybe when you're doing the dishes or sweeping the floor and listening to the YouTube videos, one of the things you'll learn is what their early life experience was, what it is that induced them to be this way, how this was the only way they could feel safe in the world, and how deeply embedded that was at such an early age, and why it's not a mental illness, it's not an emotional distress, it's not something like that. It's just like a personality set of characteristics that's embedded deep in the person's character or personality, and they can't really change it. So it's kind of unkind to wish for that. So what is it that I would suggest that you do? So here's my little drawing. My suggestion is that you have affection and goodwill for them in your heart, and understanding that this is just a person doing the best they can. And at the same time, you have a stop sign here with a hand going like that, meaning reduce the amount of relationship with you that you have with them to the degree that you can tolerate, the degree that's comfortable for you. That is to say, don't spend much of your time or your energy, those little wavy lines is energy. Don't spend so much of your time and energy with them anymore. And this is a shield, and I'll tell you how to make that shield. It's not new agey, and it doesn't require visualization. It's biomechanical and easy, but you have a shield so they can't really get you. And I once decided to have a 5% relationship with someone that I knew who had these behaviors. This was a person I'd yearned and longed to be friends with. I tried, and I went back over and over and over. After this person did those things, I'd go back and they'd do those things, and I'd go back and I just wanted to be friends. I just wanted to be friends. And then they would be all wonderful and wonderful, and I would happily think we had a good relationship, and then whammo, I'd realize, oh wait, I was just deluded. Finally, I learned about all these things, and I changed my expectations. I created a 5% relationship. When I see this person, I would greet them in a friendly way. I would acknowledge their presence, because that's the right thing to do. I never do this. That would be mean. I wouldn't want to do that anyway. And when I was somewhere where they were, I would say hello. And if I was somewhere where they were and it was a small enough group of folks, like sitting at a dining room table or something, when I left, I would say goodbye to them as I did to everyone else. Once in a while, I'd go be in a small group where this person was. Once in a while, if I got invited to go to their house for some kind of event, if it was a large enough group, I'd go. If it was just this person inviting me over for tea, I would say, oh, thank you, no, I've got something going here, but I appreciate it, but no thanks. I didn't want to have much time or energy or interaction. It's not, but I didn't have an unkind heart about it, because I don't want to ask people to shut off their heart or be uncaring or cold to the person. I want them to be kind in their mind and their heart, which is a lot easier if you don't see them very much, isn't it? So I would like that person to not experience me or cutting them off in a cold, cruel way when you see them, but rather being courteous and respectful in your demeanor and your behavior, but just limiting how much that is, and you get to decide. So then my best friend at Earth Haven said to this young man that I've mentioned, the one that we had the study group about, she said, you know, I've come to realize that I don't understand you, and I think that you don't understand me. So what I'd like to do is not get together anymore, visit, but just talk to each other about any kind of business that we have in the community, because I believe we don't understand each other. I thought that was brilliant. I wrote it down and memorized it, and that's why I want to share it with you. It's because it was so kind. She didn't make him wrong. She didn't make herself wrong. She said a true thing. She really didn't understand him, and he clearly didn't understand her, because she's a kind person. And another thing that she did with another person, this is the person I had the 5% relationship with, that person targeted her and went after her, my best friend, and was just excruciatingly hurtful in public, in meetings, in public, on community email, and in small groups. And my friend said, I will not tolerate you berating and criticizing me in community meetings and social events. If you do this again, I'll ask you not to, and remind you that I won't tolerate it. If you do it again, the same meeting or social event, I'll leave the meeting or the event. Well, you might think, you'll leave? Is that a threat? Well, no, it just means I'm not putting up with it and I'm letting you know. And that was very, very good. And then she limited her. She has like a 1% relationship with that person. And the reason that she did it was to have a happy life and community. When I presented this at a conference where I was recently, somebody said, well, why should you get off the committee? I forgot to tell you that part. I would get off the committee if that person was going to come on to the committee in the community. And if I wanted to go on to a committee because I really cared about the thing they were doing and I wanted to serve the community in that way, I wouldn't go on if that person was there. But if they leave, I would. Okay, so this person said, why would you leave? It's not fair. You're not the one doing that stuff. You should be on the committee. Why should you get off? Meaning, why should we get off? And I thought, because I'm more interested in peace of mind and happiness and goodwill in my heart in the community than I am in struggling. Committees can wait. There's years of time and many of us to do all the things that need doing, and I'll be on another committee in the meantime. Okay, so what else? The forehead gaze. This is the best thing I know, along with find out and reduce expectations. Then I'm going to stop talking and you can share your thoughts. The forehead gaze. Please check out this part of your forehead right here. If you would put your finger there, you'll feel that not between your eyebrows and not way up here and not on the side, but just like slightly above your two eyebrows. There's a place that if you feel that place, it feels kind of significant. Like if you put your finger some other place, it just feels like a finger on your face, but this feels kind of like a place. Okay, let's say, now I'm looking at Karen right now because your screen is the biggest. So I'm going to look at you right here, Karen. And when I'm doing it, I hope that it looks to you like I'm looking right at your eyes, because you really can't tell that a person is not looking in your eyes when you're looking here at them. So there's a very amazing thing that happens. I call this the forehead gaze, and I learned it from a metaphysical teacher years and years ago. And then I forgot all about it for 30 years and then brought it up when I met the scariest person I'd ever met, and suddenly I remembered how to do it. When you look at a person there, you're paying them the courtesy of looking at them, except you're not looking into their eyes and they're not looking into your eyes. Rather, they feel courteously paid attention to. The other thing that happens is some kind of very strange Star Trek shields up metaphysical strange thing occurs, so that whatever they're throwing at you, energy-wise, glares, scowls, anger, little passive-aggressive darts, doesn't get you. Doesn't get you? Yeah, doesn't get you. So now I'm going to look at you, Karin, because your face is the biggest one on the screen, the way it is for me, and I imagine for you, it's my face. If I'm looking at you right there and we're talking to each other, like, you know, in real life or even on Zoom, if you were sending negative energy, it would go like this. It would bypass me. It could not get me. I would be like the Starship Enterprise with the shields up. And if I was sending it at you and you're looking at me right here, and if a person has a bunch of bangs, just imagine where the place is, you know. And so if you look at me there and I'm sending, or this, it's going right past you, Karin. It's not going to get you. Why is that? I have no idea. It's something strange and amazing. But here we go, a little picture. This person here, which is you or me, is looking at them right at their little forehead spot. And the energy they might be sending doesn't get you. It goes past. Why is that? I don't know. But I did this with a community, not my community. Another community had a person who was doing these behaviors, quite a few of them consistently for years, and of the covert, fragile, or vulnerable kind. And she was devastating. People left the community. People didn't join the community. They told me many, many stories. And so she was coming at me because I was a community consultant there to visit them and stay. I stayed 2 weeks there, and it was great. And I made a lot of friends there. And this woman one night was really furious, and she came after me, and her energy was like, and I just went, bong. I did it kind of automatically. I had forgotten about it for decades, really. And I was impervious. I was like Wonder Woman. I was like Xena, the warrior princess. I was like the Starship Enterprise with all the shields up 100%. Engineering, percentage of shields, 100%, Captain. Okay, 100%, Captain. I was absolutely safe. And other people were watching me with astonishment. They thought I was some kind of amazing person. I was just using this, that's all. And you can do it too. Okay. In the email, I'll send you the things groups of people can do privately and things that a whole community can do. And I think I will make that available immediately because it's supposed to be part of tonight, but we need time for you to ask your questions or make your comments. And in fact, instead of doing what I did before, let's just do one at a time because I think that's easier. I imagine, Karin, you're doing this.
Actually, y'all should have the power to unmute yourselves. So it sounds like Diana is opening up to questions. So if you have a question or a comment, you can just do your little unmute question and go for it.
Hi, I'm Angela. I have a question. Hi. Yeah. So what if those behaviors come at you via email or on the phone?
Well, I'm going to show you something on my computer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The button that says D, I don't know if you got to see it or if that worked, what I just tried. The delete button. Think your self-esteem and your well-being is more important than you got to read their message. But let's say you did read their message and it felt awful. A good thing for a community to do is to have an email policy, an email courtesy policy. So when the person that I have mentioned sends emails out like that, I write back immediately. They're not directed to me anymore. I've become somehow not her target. But I immediately say, please don't write emails like this. We've got a policy to send courteous, goodwill, or at least neutral emails. Please don't call this person that, you know, don't say that about them on email. Please don't. And what it is, it's like the many raindrops makes a flood, which Roger, who's on our call tonight, has asked me to bring up, and I will. That's when multiple different people ask the person to not do X. Well,
that the sound went way down when she flipped to the video.
Yeah.
the person, I hear somebody talking.
Yeah, there was a comment, Diana, that when you speak, the sound goes down on the video.
Okay, I'm now closer to the mic on my computer. Is that better?
Is that better? It sounds fine on mine.
A little.
It's fine. I can hear.
It went lower. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So then the person in my community who has the email policy about how we're supposed to be courteous on email sends the policy out to everybody immediately and says, hey, everybody, just wanted to remind you, this is our policy. Please don't say mean things to other people on email. So if your community, which I now know which one it is, where friends of mine are, has a policy like that, good. And if it doesn't, it's a good idea, so we can talk about how to get that. Before we go any further, I want to talk briefly about many raindrops make a flood. What that is if somebody's doing and saying things that is really hard for a lot of people in a community, what can be very beneficial for the community, though not necessarily for how they feel, but for the community, is to courteously ask them not to do that right after they do it, or a day later on the phone, or a day later on email, or a day later when you see them, or maybe not right then if that doesn't seem right, but just briefly later. And if multiple people do that, it's like they're getting multiple little raindrops, soft, gentle raindrops, ideally. Ideally, these are delivered in an NBC-ishly empathetic goodwill way, but they might even be delivered in a damn it all, that pissed me off way. One way or the other, they're raindrops. If enough raindrops drop, that is to say, enough feedback gets fed, the person may go, this is very unlikely, but they may go, oh, I've been doing that. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you for letting me know. Or maybe they'll be kind of defensive, but somehow they're glad, and they've gotten feedback from the universe via you all, and that's good. But usually what happens is this. Are you ready? If I had a drum roll, I'd beat a drum roll. Usually what happens is they leave the community because the raindrops, even though gentle, for them are intolerable. That's why when Madam X sends out mean emails in my community, I write, dear Madam, please don't do that anymore. Please don't say da 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 da, because we have an email policy now to do that. And a few minutes later, whammo, the person, not me, who runs the email policy thing, sends it out to everybody. Just wanted to remind everybody this is our policy.
So you copy everybody with your response.
Yeah, I send it to the whole list.
Okay.
Because this person sent it to the whole list.
Right.
Oh, here's another one about email. Oh, this is a good one. So once upon a time in my community, a different other person would send me nasty, mean emails. This guy was famous for sending nasty, mean emails. Not all the time, and not to most people, but to some people sometimes. So I emailed him back and said, I am CCing some of your favorite people in this community, your email and my response. Anytime you send me any email, I'm going to send it to them as well, so they'll see it. And my response will send to them as well. And then I emailed him privately and said, dear friends, please ignore these emails. I'm not trying to make you do any more work. I'm just trying to help myself. And he really likes you all. So thank you for being my eyes and ears. Because folks who do these behaviors quite often will not do them when there's an audience. They will do it when you're alone. So I hope that helps, Angela.
Thank you.
Although, Diane, I do see in the chat, Marianne asks, what if the negative critical remarks are made at a community meeting?
And they will be. Well, what I would do is, Marianne didn't say whether, so I'm going to answer it both ways, whether it's just negative critical remarks towards somebody or about the proposal we're discussing or about something in the community or about one's own self. So there are some things you can do that are phrases to deflect away things like this. So here we go. When the person makes a statement that is obviously exaggerated or wholly made up or ridiculous, or you're trying to prove a point to the person and then they shift the blame onto you and say, no, you do that and that's you and you're wrong. You can say, thank you for telling me how you feel, and move on. Or thank you for telling me what you think about this, and then just move on. Or thank you for expressing your opinion. Or, well, let's say that you disagree. When I do workshops, I have people say out loud all together and then say to each other, I disagree. Because we in community often don't know that we can just say, oh, I disagree, in a pleasant way. Oh, well, I disagree. I just wanted you to know what I think about that. Oh, well, I disagree. I just wanted you to know how I feel about it. Let's say they say, you are a nyana, and you, and the problem with you is, and you, or maybe they're doing it in that subtle, covert way, and they say some words, and then you go, why do I feel horrible? And then you could say, I'm sorry you believe that, and then move on. Or you could say, oh, I see it differently, when they have an opinion that's violently different than yours, and they're mad at you because you have a different opinion. There are things you can do to deflect away, like a simple, courteous, not blaming or shaming them, not being unkind to them, not biting the hook of getting engaged in drama or trauma. A simple little statement. Oh, well, I see it differently. Well, I disagree. I'm sorry that you see it that way. You are a da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Diana. Oh, I'm sorry you see it that way. It's kind of self-empowering, don't you think? Self-affirming. And if you feel dreadful in the community meeting where they do this, you can decide how much relationship you do or don't want to have with them outside the meeting. Okay, I'm ready, Karen, for any more questions or comments.
Am I unmuted? Okay, Sarah says, what about when the person with the challenging personality is someone you have to deal with in community as a part of the decision-making process, and they make the decision-making difficult or impossible?
So now here are some things that are going to come in the handout, and I didn't say yet, so I'll say them now. A community can propose to the community in the business meeting that they adopt an agreement that when people want to join a team or a committee, that they request to join that team or committee. They don't just show up and be a full decision-making member of it and then get community labor credit as if they are a member of it and they insert themselves into it and now they're a member of it, but rather they request. And the people in the group, in the membership committee or the finance committee or whatever it is, can say yes, or yes, but with the following conditions. Yes, if you will do X differently, like if you're the garden committee and somebody wants to join who has a dog and the dog likes to dig up loose soil, and part of what they do is they work in the raised beds in the garden. You know, please don't bring your dog Diggy. And yes, you can join, but please don't bring your dog Diggy, because usually you take me with you everywhere. So that's a condition, and it's not a mean condition. Or you can say, no, thank you, not at this time. Now, many people in communities would rather die and have a root canal and get run over by a long, heavy train than ever say no to another person in community, because of their belief that on high, in the rules about community that are written in the universe somehow, you can't ever not say yes to somebody in community who wants to do a thing. But I think you can say no, and I wish you would. So my community now has the agreement that you have to apply to be in a committee. Why is that? Our committees want to get the job done, and they want to get the job done in a way that's beneficial and has goodwill, and there's a kind of a, we're doing it feeling, and to have Mr. or Ms. disrupt the meeting with their ways of being, why allow that? We can't really get our job done too well, not to mention which Sarah just left the committee, and now Tom is leaving, and Andy's not going to stay in the community, and I mean in the committee, and you know, Susan is leaving leaving too, and that means that the committee has only got me and you left on it, and I'm leaving too now. Bye. Have you ever seen this in your whole life in a community near you? Yes, you probably have. And so that's one thing you can do. It's very unlikely your community will say yes to this proposal, but if they did, it would be wonderful. Another thing you can do is ask a person. This needs a resolution by a steering committee or a process team or the whole community to agree to it or not, to ask the person to please not come to community meetings for a year and do some work on their communication style. My community did this once, and it was extremely beneficial. And we all had a feeling of relief for a year, and then we didn't anymore when the person came back at the end of the year. It was the same as it had been, but gee, for a year we all felt way better. It's very unlikely a community would do this, because a lot of people in communities think you can't do this, and it would be horrible to do this, and you're a failing community, and you're bad, and you're breaking the rules about community written in the universe. But I think it's a good idea. I saw one that said about Asperger's. It says, looks like you're describing Asperger's syndrome, and yes and no. This is a neurological wiring thing, Asperger's, and it's not a psychological trauma thing. And the person has little empathy, but they aren't doing these other behaviors. They're just unable to feel much empathy, and it's not their fault. The people I'm talking about usually don't also have Asperger's. They're generally extremely traumatized at a really young age, which you can learn more about in those videos.
All right, we just have 1 minute, so we probably have time for one more question if somebody has something that they really want to ask tonight.
Interesting.
I have another question. Oh, sorry, you go ahead. I've already spoken.
Hi there. My name's Elon. I'm wondering how you go about making sure that you're diagnosing correctly. What if I think that this other person is definitely, you know, he not only is disruptive and difficult, but definitely has Asperger's and, you know, a bunch of other symptoms, but they think the same about me. How do I know that?
Well, first of all, they do
know,
think about you. Take it from me. You're bad and wrong in their mind. And secondly, don't under any circumstance diagnose anybody, please. Perhaps you weren't here in the beginning of this when I begged people not to do that. So I'm not going to blame you. You just might not have heard me say it. The better thing to do is to look at the behaviors, but not some kind of ongoing continuous condition, like a state of being. This is the NVC training in me talking now, plus what I've learned just living in community and in life. If you notice some behaviors that they have, and they match some behaviors on a list about, quote, narcissistic behaviors, and they match kind of like that, you don't have to diagnose or have any belief about what they are or have. You can just say, when I see these behaviors, I don't enjoy them, and I'm going to do some things to help myself have more peace of mind, and leave it at that. And cerrada la boca, do you speak Spanish? That means close your mouth. Do not tell fellow community members who observe these behaviors and think it means this or that, because it'll rebound negatively on you. Just do a few things to help yourself feel better, help the community feel better. That's what you can do.
Great. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you very, very much, Diana, Leafe, Christian. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for attending tonight. So it usually takes about 24 or 48 hours to kind of convert this to a video. excuse me, and then Diana, when you have those handouts, you can send them to Karen or I, and we can upload those with the web chat recording. They will both be on cohousing.org under web chats. Just wanted to let you all know that offering these web chats does use our staff time. We always appreciate donations to the association. Also, if you are a part of a community currently, whether it's an established one or a forming one, it is budget season right now. So please, if your community wishes to make a community donation to the association, please do so now. Just want to let you know the next web chat is scheduled for Wednesday, November 6th, same time, so whatever time zone you're in. And it is Katie McCammett speaking about the stages of co-housing development. And I think that is about it for tonight. Thank you, Diana. Thanks, everybody. Good night.